Well, good morning, everybody. I've just come from the North Carolina Emergency Management Regional Coordinating Center East here in Lenoir County. Have been briefed by officials regarding the effects of Debby and what we're going to do going forward. I'm here with North Carolina Emergency Management Director Will Ray. We also have Kinston Mayor Hardy and council members Hardy and Suggs with us. We also have Senator Bob Brinson with us today. North Carolina continues to face unrelenting rain and destruction from Tropical Storm Debby. We have seen rain continue to pound counties throughout the state. Right now, 32 counties have states of emergency declared. We expect there will probably be more as this storm moves north and west. We have upped the number of National Guard members who have been activated to 374. As you know, there have been multiple reports of tornado touchdowns throughout eastern part of the state. And unfortunately, we have one fatality from that in Wilson County, and our prayers are with his friends and family. We have right now about 125,000 people without power. That number continues to fluctuate, and at last report, 142,000 people had lost their power, but have had their power restored. Swiftwater rescue teams are placed throughout the state. Some of them have already had to be activated here. We asked North Carolinians to be careful, to be safe, to pay attention to local officials, particularly if you live in low-lying areas that may be prone to flooding. Be wary. Make sure you are listening for evacuation orders. We ask people to honor voluntary evacuations if requested by local officials. We have a number of shelters that are open throughout the state, and people have begun to go to those shelters. And obviously, this is not over. Rain is still coming down, and we know that riverine flooding potential. Our rivers are rising, so we know that from our river gauges there will be several areas that we are concerned about river flooding over the next few days. I'm going to now turn this over for more specifics to Will Ray, our Director of Emergency Management, and then we will answer questions that you might have. Director Ray.
Thank you, Governor. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you to the team from Kinston as well as the folks in Lenoir County who have done an outstanding job supporting the ongoing operations here as well as supporting the state deployed assets that we had. Touching first on the weather forecast, as the governor said, we are seeing the system begin to really move into North Carolina. As we've all seen with the forecast tracks, the center of Debby is continuing to move slightly to the west. We will see the bulk of the system continue to move into North Carolina through the day today and into the evening. Right now, the center of Debby is anticipated to have exited the state into Virginia very, very late overnight or into the early hours of Friday morning. But as the governor said, we are continuing to see, we are and will continue to see impacts from Debby with some of the trailing rain bands that we will see behind the center. As the governor said, our primary concern right now continues to be the amount of rainfall, the associated riverine flooding that could potentially lead to. We have impacts that we are already seeing in the southeastern part of our state with some of the flooding in low-lying areas as the rain continues to fall. We know that as the system continues its move through North Carolina, those risks and threats will continue to increase. The water levels will continue to increase, and we will continue to see that threat move into the western part of the state. As the governor said, we currently have 32 local states of emergency. There are 3 jurisdictions that have voluntary evacuation orders in place. Those are Bladen, Brunswick, and Moore counties. We have activated an additional number of National Guard personnel that brings that total up to 374 with 131 vehicles across 72 force packages. And again, those are staged across North Carolina, both here in the eastern branch where we are today, as well as into our central and western part. We have 16 shelters open, and the census is at this point approximately just over 60 individuals. Our local jurisdictions have continued to plan and prepare for potential impact in their jurisdictions, and so are opening these shelters as a precautionary measure to support either ongoing flooding or in anticipation of what could come with extended flooding. Cannot say enough about what our counties and our cities and other municipalities have done and continue to do to make sure that all 10.8 million North Carolinians are safe. We continue to work with our partners in the healthcare infrastructure, our partners at the Office of EMS, to make sure that we have contingency plans should we need a state medical support shelter and potential support there for individuals that may need a higher level of acuity. We are also planning some contingency options related to sheltering, again, to make sure that our local partners have what they need to either do their own sheltering through some of our ongoing commodity distribution or looking at potential personnel or other facilities that may be needed. Earlier today, DOT and the State Highway Patrol did report there have been 2 areas where we have seen some inundation across major roadways. There was one area earlier today on I-95 around Lumberton that did have some water across the road. The State Highway Patrol did report just a little while ago that has been cleared. There's also some water inundation that was seen around 40 in the Burgaw area. So we continue to work with both DOT and our State Highway Patrol partners to make sure that our roadways remain clear and safe. As the governor said, we would ask people to continue to follow the directives of your local public safety agencies. Please make sure you are calling 911 for life-threatening or urgent situations. Please otherwise keep that line open for individuals in your community that may need emergent support. And last thing, again, we would continue to say, please make sure you have a reliable way to get information both on the weather forecast, the conditions in your community, and what your local public safety agencies are directing or asking you to do. It's going to be really paramount for folks over the next several days as we continue to look at the flooding threat and the potential rise in our river basins, that members of the general public are able to receive information quickly to be able to take action if they need to. Again, and lastly, I'll say thank you to the men and women protect their communities. Thank you, Governor.
You stay up here with me. Yes. Thank you, Director Ray, and we're grateful for our FEMA partners. Rob McAllister is here with us today, and all of the agencies that are working in a coordinated way. We're also grateful for the teams from out of state who have come to help us, and always grateful for our first responders who often risk their lives to help other people. So Director Ray and I will now open it up for questions that you might have.
We can start on this end, ABC.
Yep.
What specific resources will you be providing to local communities?
Director Ray.
So as we stated yesterday, as we've looked at this storm track since last week, and when some of the forecast products came out, we've been trying to evaluate, along with our local partners, on where we could potentially see flooding threat. And so for those reasons, that's why we have activated the number of National Guard personnel that we have. That's why we've brought on the number of swiftwater rescue teams that we have. 17 kind of really were brought on orders pre-impact. Again, working through our partners at FEMA as well as our colleagues in other states. We are continuing to evaluate flooding threat, flooding forecast, and what additional swiftwater rescue assets may be needed. Additionally, part of the commodity push that we've done is to make sure that the locals have what they need to be able to conduct sheltering operations or support folks that have been displaced, either actively or planning for, and so we will continue that work. That's really, I think, where we're looking at now, as well as how we can support power restoration and power generation should we see some critical facilities start to have need. I do not have that specific information in front of you about what's available in Kinston. Those are statewide, and again, I would say our local agencies continue to do a fantastic job planning for what could potentially be needed in their jurisdictions, and so as the system moves across the state over the next day and a half, I think you will see that number change potentially in spots that are available.
Yeah, there's no question about it. Since Florence and Matthew, all of our combined efforts have helped to rebuild and repair almost 14,000 homes, hundreds of public buildings, roads, and bridges. And the good thing about it is that in most instances, we've been able to rebuild in a more resilient way. Many of the homes that people have gotten back into have been elevated, who live in lower lying areas. We've made some tough decisions not to build back in certain areas that continue to get flooding, and those areas now work to soak up water and potentially protect other areas from flooding. So I think a lot of lessons have been learned. We hope and don't believe that we'll see as much damage as Matthew and Florence from this storm, but we are keeping close eye out on river gauges. We ask people to stay in contact and know what their local officials are saying, because if you're asked to evacuate, we want you to obey those evacuation orders, because saving lives is the number one thing. And we will see what these rainstorms continue to bring.
Next question, WITN.
Any advice for tornado warnings in those areas, as protocol is to get on the first floor, but that man that unfortunately passed away was on the first floor already?
Yeah, obviously the best place you can get is in a basement. Sometimes people don't hear warnings. Some of the worst effects that tornadoes have are at night, because people are asleep. They don't hear warnings, and you can't see them. And the ones that, they haven't officially been declared tornadoes. The reports have touched down, but we've seen the damage, and we assume that we are, and we assume that one was a tornado. We just ask people to listen for reports and get to a basement or a central part of the house away from windows in the event they get a tornado warning.
Next question, NCT.
Has there been anything you guys want to improve upon so far since the storm started, whether that's communicating to the public or safety rescue efforts?
Sure. Thank you for the question. I think our goal has been, as I've stated, how do we get resources out as quickly as possible to be able to support what our local agencies and local jurisdictions need to do. Part of also what we talked about, I know yesterday was that's why I think the partnership within our state emergency response team that includes our partners at FEMA. That's why we've taken some of the steps as early as we have to bring in some of the resources from FEMA, so that not just during the response phase, but also as we transition from response into recovery, we can quickly do those assessments, quickly assess damage to be able to determine what options we may have as we look at helping our communities recover from the damage that they may see here. But I think really our goal is to support a quick deployment of resources into those impacted areas to support our local agencies doing what they need to do.
Next question, TBD.
We have not received any additional information about fatalities. We know that as potential floodwaters rise, that potential is there. We also want to take the time to let people know that we expect some roads to be flooded, that barricades will be erected. We once again tell people not to walk through or drive through water, particularly after this kind of situation, because we know that that's where we see the majority of deaths after these storms are people who are in floodwater. So people need to be extra careful right now.
Last question, Spectre.
So right now we are still very much in the active response phase, and I think very much will be as we move into the weekend. Again, our focus is on protecting life safety, both here in eastern North Carolina, as there are many communities dealing with rising floodwaters, as well as the impact as we see the system move through the remainder and into our western part of the state. It's important that folks have documentation, that they are engaged with their local officials when we move into that damage assessment phase. The damage assessments that our local agencies will conduct are the damage assessments that our team, along with the team from FEMA, will conduct in jurisdictions across the state, are really going to drive and determine what additional available state and federal recovery programs, either from FEMA or other federal agencies, are going to be made available. And so as we move from response into recovery, you will see our messaging change and the messaging change from many of your local jurisdictions. But I would stress that right now local agencies are very much still involved and engaged with and planning for active response, and that is the focus kind of right now moving over the next couple of days.
That's the time we've got. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you, guys.